Hey, how's it? Pehoi. Welcome to episode 100 of the Cool Project Podcast. I'm your host, Daniel Aipa, and today we're going to dive into a topic that has been currently pretty much a pretty big topic around our health and well-being, and it's the epidemic of loneliness. It's the silent struggle that affects many people around the world, and in this episode, we're going to explore its roots, its consequences, and most importantly, what you can do to combat it. Now, this is a topic that came up to me recently, actually, when I was invited to speak in Alaska, Anchorage, Alaska, at this convention called GWIC, which is Good Health and Wellness in Indian Country. And what I was invited to do was to share some of the projects that I've been working on with a couple of the tribes up in Northern California, the Hupa, Yurok, and Karuk. And during that convention, I sat in on one of the talks, and they're talking about on the life on the reservations, some of the the issues and problems that they're dealing with. And while cardiovascular, like diabetes, stroke, tobacco use was a very high part of the topic, something that came up a lot was loneliness. And they were finding that a lot of people, especially within an Indian country, and the communities on the reservations, they had a huge spike in mental health and loneliness, the feeling of loneliness, not belonging. And that made me realize that this is a topic that we don't talk very much about. So that's what we're going to do today, because I also put out a survey not too long ago over on Instagram about asking people of how they felt, if they've ever felt lonely or are they currently feeling lonely now. And majority of people who answered it said that they have felt lonely at some point in their life. And a handful of you out there have said that you always feel lonely. So I hope today brings you a little more insights about what exactly loneliness is and the differences between being alone and being lonely. Actually, let's start with that, okay? Let's break down the difference between being alone and loneliness, because there are two different things. You see, being alone is a physical state, often chosen, and can be a neutral and positive, like being in solitude. Like for me, I like to be alone personally. I find strength in solitude, like going to the beach, standing at the ocean, just kind of staring off into the distance, kind of getting a little bit romantic and everything. But overall, that kind of feeling of just trying to get away from the chaos, trying to ground myself alone is something that can be very powerful. Now, loneliness, on the other hand, is an emotional state, and it's typically involuntary. It can bring negative emotions and often comes from a lack of meaningful connections, especially social connections, or a sense of isolation, like being almost like a feeling of being a ghost amongst others. Eerie, right? But you got the difference now between alone and loneliness. Okay, it's like, for instance, loneliness is not just a fleeting feeling of sadness or isolation. It has become an epidemic that is affecting our families and our communities. Now, according to numerous studies, the presence of loneliness has been steadily rising over the years. In fact, in 2018, a survey conducted by Cigna, a global health service company, revealed that nearly half of all Americans reported feeling lonely or left out at some point in their lives. Now, raise your hand or just give a nod if you've experienced feeling lonely, left out at some point in your life. I'm sure many of you right now listening are probably just shaking your head like, yeah, I can relate to that. But why is this happening? Well, there are many factors. Of course, our modern lifestyles are a little bit more hectic and fast-paced, leaving us with little time for deep, meaningful connections. And the rise of technology has connected us in many ways, but it has also left us feeling more isolated. Crazy, right? Like social media can give sometimes that illusion of connection. It often lacks the depth and authenticity of real-life interactions. And I strongly agree with that, because there's a difference between connecting over on Zoom, which we can still have a connection there and everything and have an interaction. But having that ability to see someone face to face in person and having that connection, being in the presence of each other is huge difference in that. Now, the Surgeon General, Vivek Murthy, in his book, Together, The Healing Power of Human Connection in the Sometimes Lonely World, highlighted this issue, stating, loneliness is a growing health epidemic. We live in the most technologically connected age in the history of civilization. yet rates of loneliness have doubled since the 1980s. Now, I'm a child of the 1980s. I'm just going to throw my age out there. Have you seen those pictures being shared on like Instagram or all over social media? There's like an image of a bunch of bikes outside of a person's house. And that was like a sign of where you knew everyone was at. You know, like now on social media today, like everyone's posting pictures or the concerts that we're over here, we're over there. But it was a little more simpler during then, you know, like, and I always talk about like our world in the 1980s was very, very small. Like I grew up in Kailua, Oahu, and all we knew what was going on was within our little town Kailua, which is much different now, I can tell you that. Our world was much smaller. So we felt a little more connection there because everyone knew each other. Everyone, you could walk to the grocery store and see a whole bunch of friends, a whole bunch of relatives. You can just walk down the street and you see your friends coming down with their parents and you see cousins. And that's kind of how it was. It was a small knit community. So we had this feeling of togetherness and belonging. Nowadays, the world for children and the youth is just huge, especially when you have this device of social media and being connected all the time. Our world is constantly growing and growing bigger. And we're getting a lot more information coming our way. And we have to figure out how to absorb all that information that we do consume. But anyways, in the book, Surgeon General Vivek Murthy, he emphasizes that despite our technological advancements, we are feeling lonelier than ever. And it's a conflict that's affecting our mental and physical well-being. So what are the consequences of this epidemic of loneliness? You see, loneliness has been linked to a range of health issues, including increased risk of heart disease, depression, anxiety, and even a weakened immune system. Crazy, right? Like a study published in the Journal of Perspectives on Psychological Science found that chronic loneliness can be as detrimental to your health as smoking 15 cigarettes a day. 15 cigarettes a day. But here's the thing. It's not just about the statistics and the negative effects on health. Loneliness is a deeply personal and emotional experience. It can make you feel like a ghost in the sea of people, like nobody understands you, and like there's a constant ache in your chest. It's a universal human emotion that can strike anyone, regardless of your age, gender, or background. So, what can we do about it? How can we combat this feeling of loneliness and start to feel more connected to others as well as ourselves? Well, let's explore some strategies and insights that can help. First and foremost, it's crucial to recognize that you are not alone in feeling lonely. Loneliness is a shared experience and it's something that countless people struggle with. In fact, acknowledging our own loneliness can be the first step towards finding solutions. Now, maybe we can think of a moment when we felt lonely. For instance, I'll share one of my personal experiences. And that was when I was, again, living out in upstate New York by myself. I've shared this story many times because it was such an impactful moment in my life. I was far away from home. I was in New York, across the whole continent, away from home, away from family, away from friends. A snowstorm was coming through and I had to get out of the house. It was around Christmas time and I couldn't afford to fly back home to be with family during the holidays. And there I was stuck. And in this city that I was living in, it was basically a college town. So it just shut down during the winter time. No businesses were open. It was just completely just like a ghost town. And I was getting super antsy inside the house. But there was a big blizzard going on outside and I couldn't drive. So I decided, like, you know what? I'm going to walk up to the street and I'm going to catch the bus down because there was a main road right there and they do pretty good at plowing the streets. So I'm just going to jump on the bus. So I got ready and I waited for the bus. And I tell you, there was not a soul in sight. I didn't see a person, a car. There was nothing. It was just white. Just the snow flying everywhere, coming horizontal. The wind was really strong too. And I remember my face just started to get numb. My toes started to get numb because I was just waiting. And talk about being almost like an outer body experience, and I'm feeling like just emptiness and wondering, you know what? I could just freeze out here and no one will even know. You know, it was one of those moments where I literally was a ghost in that area and it hurt. So Loneliness has been an experience that I've often come across. But I hope that talking about loneliness will help somebody out there who is feeling lonely. And whatever we cover today will hopefully give you some guidance to help you build meaningful connections. Again, another aspect of combating loneliness is fostering genuine connections. It's not about the quantity of friends you have. It's about the quality of those relationships. So instead of scrolling through your social media feed and counting likes and followers, try reaching out to a friend for a real conversation. Invest time in deepening your existing relationships and making new ones. And that's usually what I try to do for myself. I try to reach out to a friend that I haven't spoken to for a while, just to check in, see what's going on in their lives, because it's important to keep those connections going. Now, when I was getting ready for this podcast episode, I opened up for questions over on Instagram. And I said, hey, if you have any questions about loneliness, feel free to ask them here. And I'm going to share with you some of the questions and some of the things that I've learned and reflected on with those questions. So the first question is, how can I let go of my past in order to not feel lonely anymore? So letting go of feelings of loneliness can be challenging, but it is an essential process for improving your emotional well-being. Now, this is something that I need to work on, and I've been working on myself because it involves releasing negative thoughts, beliefs, and behaviors that may be contributing to your loneliness. Like for me, I'm a very much a recluse. I like to almost not be around people. I'm fine with that. But too much of that, I have found myself getting deeper and deeper into this, finding solitude and strength in being alone to feeling empty and lonely. You know what I mean? So here are some insights and practical steps to help you let go and not feel lonely anymore. And the first one is self-acceptance. You got to start by accepting your feelings of loneliness without judgment. Remember, loneliness is a universal emotion, and it's okay to feel this way at times. That is something I've needed to tell myself, that it is a normal emotion and nothing's wrong with me, but it's good to be aware of that emotion. And accepting your emotions as valid is the first step towards letting them go. Next is identify the source. So you got to reflect on the source of your loneliness. Is it primarily due to being alone? Or is it linked to other factors like social disconnection or unmet emotional needs or even past traumas? Like for me, one thing that sticks out to me that causes me to disconnect is my past trauma of being teased as a child for having a speech impediment and a hearing impairment and not being able to communicate with my peers. So as a child, I wanted to just disconnect from everybody else. I didn't want to talk. I didn't want to be around people because I was afraid of being teased again or misunderstood. You see, understanding the source can help you address it more effectively. Next is reach out. You see, loneliness can often lead to isolation, which in turn perpetuates the feeling. Reach out to friends, family, or support groups. Share your feelings and connect with others who may be experiencing similar emotions or who are there to just support you and be there. Sometimes reaching out is the most effective way to combat loneliness. Next is engage in self-care. Self-care is vital in reducing loneliness. You got to make sure that you're taking care of your physical and emotional needs. This includes eating well, getting regular exercise, and getting enough sleep. For me, getting enough exercise and getting regular exercise on a routine has been a huge game changer for me. And that is kind of why fitness has been played such a big part in my life. Many of you may not know that before working on the Cool Project, I was actually a strength coach at a university. It's a small Division III university in Southern California, University of Redlands. But that was basically like my life, was fitness, was training athletes, getting them ready to perform their best level on the field and making those connections. And then I carried on that fitness and that training and coaching into when I moved back to Hawaii, started my own gym, got into fitness even more, did a couple competitions here or there, because it just made me feel more grounded, more connected. So exercise has always been an important part of my life. Now, getting enough sleep, that's something I still got to work on. Having 3 kids, I still got to I have a 15-month-old, and so the sleep part could do some work on, but we're getting there. Next is pursue your passions. Invest time in your interests and hobbies. You see, engaging in activities that you actually enjoy can provide a sense of fulfillment and reduce loneliness. It can also lead to opportunities to meet like-minded individuals. Like if you are a painter and you haven't painted for a long time, start painting. If you're into like writing stories, writing short stories, or making up things, do that. There's something in your life that you used to do a lot before that you really enjoyed that you no longer do right now. You're probably nodding your head right now, like, oh, yep, there's something. Do that. Start doing that more often. Remember that letting go of loneliness is a process, and it may take time. So you got to be patient, and you got to show yourself some aloha as you work through these steps. It's also essential to recognize that letting go of loneliness does not mean you'll never feel lonely again. I want to repeat that again. Recognize that letting go of loneliness does not mean you'll never feel lonely again. It means developing the resilience and skills to manage and overcome those feelings when they arise. Question 2. Is it possible to feel lonely while in a healthy relationship, and why? Yeah, this was a deep one. When I came across this question, I was like, ooh, let's dive into this one. Let's reflect on this one. Because what I found is that feeling lonely while in a seemingly healthy relationship can be a very complex experience. But it's important to understand that loneliness in a relationship can occur for various reasons. And it doesn't necessarily indicate that there's a problem in the partnership. Okay, that's very important. It doesn't mean that there's anything wrong with the partnership. It's just part of learning and part of growing together in a partnership. So, one, there's a lack of emotional intimacy. A relationship can be healthy in many aspects, but still lack emotional intimacy. So what is emotional intimacy? Emotional intimacy involves sharing one's deepest thoughts, fears, and vulnerabilities. If one or both partners are not comfortable sharing at this level, it can lead to a sense of emotional disconnection and loneliness. So that is why it is so important for us to communicate with one another. I have a problem with communicating my emotions. As a man, that is something that we were taught not to do. We're told that it was not good for us to share our deepest thoughts, fears, and vulnerabilities. But that is something that I've been working on doing more often. And it has helped me create deeper connections by doing that. I still have those feelings of being unsure and shameful of not wanting to share too much stuff and what my thoughts and the fears that I'm going through on a day-to-day basis. But it's something that is important because it makes you human. It's part of being human. Next is busy lives. Even in a loving and healthy relationship, the demands of work, family, and personal obligations can lead to a lack of quality time together. Partners may find themselves physically present, but emotionally distant, leading to feelings of loneliness. Next is communication issues. Here we go again, communication. Effective communication is crucial in any relationship. If there are communication problems, such as misunderstandings, lack of active listening, or difficulty expressing feelings and needs, it can definitely result in some emotional distance and loneliness. For instance, like how you say something. It's not what you said, it's how you said it. That is such a true thing, because sometimes I say things and it just comes out the wrong way, or it's taken the wrong way, and then all of a sudden that just leads to something bigger, a bigger argument where the root is there's a bigger problem going on there. So the communication is very important, it's vital, and that is something that we all need to work on. The last one is external stressors. So external stressors such as financial issues, work-related stress, or family problems can make a significant impact on a relationship. You see, these stressors can consume emotional resources and leave them feeling emotionally drained, which can result in a sense of loneliness. So it's always important to have that check-in. making sure that you're doing the things that you need to do in order to relieve the stress, such as exercise, meditate, self-care, whatever it is. You got to make sure that you're checking in on one another's well-being and being truthfully honest with one another of how you're feeling. Communicate that. But yes, I believe that it's possible to feel lonely in a healthy relationship due to various factors. However, these feelings can often be addressed and resolved through open communication, mutual understanding, and a commitment to nurturing the emotional connection within the partnership. Question 3 was, why do I feel lonely even when I'm surrounded by people? Again, I've felt this many times. Just being a ghost amongst others. And it's a crappy feeling. So feeling lonely when surrounded by people is a common experience. But here are some reasons why people might feel lonely, even in the presence of others. Reason 1, introversion. Introverts, raise your hand if you're introvert. I am one. So introverts may need time alone to recharge their energy. That is definitely true, because even if they enjoy the social interactions, like after I've given a talk where I had to go out and speak to people for a couple hours, it'll take me a couple days for me to recharge my body again, to feel re-energized. Being in a crowd for an extended period of time can drain an introvert's energy and lead to a sense of social fatigue and loneliness. And that is when I get to a point where I want to be alone. Not lonely, alone. So that's when I go into solitude, I recharge my mana, do whatever I need to do, jump in the ocean, go and visit my family, be around good people, just to recharge. Because I know if I don't do that, at some point, if I'm constantly just out there, putting myself out there, being surrounded by people and getting more and more drained, I start to disconnect with people. And I start to get this feeling of loneliness, of emptiness. And yeah, it's not a good place to be sometimes. But there you go. Reason 2 is unaddressed insecurities. Now, this is something that I've been working on and I've been coming to terms with, of why I feel lonely at times. See, unresolved insecurities such as self-doubt or past experiences of rejection can make people more prone to feeling lonely. And they may struggle to believe that others actually care about them. It's true. Next reason is digital distractions. Especially in this age of the smartphones and social media and everything, people may physically be with others, but be absorbed in their digital devices. And we've all been guilty of this, and we've all observed this when people are sitting together at a table or families are sitting together and they're all on the phone. And don't put their phone down and look at each other and actually enjoy one another's presence. This distraction can hinder meaningful interaction and contribute to feeling of loneliness. Reason 4, social anxiety. That is totally me. I get big time social anxiety. Social anxiety can make it difficult to engage with others, even in a group setting. It can lead to feeling of isolation despite being physically present at social events. Like when I go to social events, I am the one who is just hanging back. And 1, because it's just sometimes too much for me. And 2, there's a part of me that does have a fear of rejection or feeling judged or something, but that goes back to having those unaddressed insecurities. Next is superficial interactions. So being physically around others does not guarantee meaningful connections. Like that superficial or surface level interactions, like small talk, for me, it doesn't fulfill me. It doesn't fulfill the need for deep emotional connections. Reason 6, inhibition. You see, sometimes people hold back from opening up or being themselves due to fear of judgment or rejection. This inhibition can result in a lack of genuine connection with those around them. Yeah, it's true. So it's important to note that feeling lonely in a crowd is not a reflection of one's worth or social skills. Loneliness is a complex emotion that can affect anyone, regardless of their circumstances. Recognizing these reasons, again, I'm going to name them off: introversion, unaddressed insecurities, digital distractions, social anxiety, superficial interactions, and inhibition. So recognizing these reasons can help individuals take steps to improve their emotional well-being and work on establishing deeper and more meaningful connections with others. It's easy to get caught up in the busyness of life, but taking time to connect with others can incredibly be rewarding. Like join clubs, attend social events where you can find like-minded individuals, volunteer for a cause that you're passionate about. These kind of activities provide opportunities to meet people that you can connect with and forge meaningful connections. Something that has helped me forge meaningful connections has been that those simple acts of kindness, like a simple smile or a kind gesture. Small acts of kindness can go a long way in brightening someone's day and creating connections. Now, let's talk about technology, because technology is such a big player in this form of connection. While it's true that technology can exacerbate feelings of loneliness, it can also be a tool for connection if used mindfully. Okay, so you got to understand the usage of technology to actually be beneficial to you. So instead of mindlessly scrolling through social media, consider using technology to join online communities that align with their interests and values. The first thing that comes to my mind with that is Kamahina Project and their Hina circles. I've helped out with the Hina circles before, and it was such a powerful experience because it was people who were looking for a support group who wanted to learn more about the moon phases, the connection to the Hawaiian culture, the different moon phases in the Hawaiian language, and the mo'olelo and the legends that come along with it, and to reflect on their personal lives in order to get a better understanding of themselves and self-awareness. And we had some really great conversations. So if you're looking for something like that, check out Kamahina Project, Hina Circles. Because engaging in meaningful discussions and sharing experiences with others online can help combat loneliness, and you build those deeper connections. Also, try to limit screen time before bed. Now, I can't tell you how many times I try to work on this, and I try to be very aware of the screen time during bedtime. That blue light from the screen can really disrupt your sleep. And I've tried it before. Like, I've gone times where I'm just like, no phone, hour before bed. I'm not going to bring the phone to the bed or anything. I'll tell you the quality of sleep, aside from the kids, waking me up throughout the night. But the quality of the sleep was a total difference when you didn't have the screen time at night. Just throwing it out there. We all know we shouldn't be doing it, yet we do it. I'm guilty of it. But it does disrupt your sleep, which in turn can worsen your feelings of isolation. If you're in this moment of feeling lonely, that can really mess you up, So creating a tech-free wind-down routine before sleep can actually help you feel more rested and emotionally balanced. Like read a book, take a hot shower, read a book, do some light stretching, maybe do some writing, maybe do some drawing, play some music, whatever it is. But create a routine that is tech-free. That's a good challenge, actually. Let's continue on with sleep, because I think sleep is also a very important topic to touch upon for overall health and wellness. Chronic sleep deprivation can amplify feeling of loneliness and contribute to mood disorders. And you're probably like, how do I feel when I get barely any sleep the next morning? Not so great. I'm not a very happy person to be around as well. So it's important to prioritize getting a good night's rest as part of your strategy to combat loneliness. Another key aspect of addressing loneliness is self-compassion. You got to be kind to yourself. Loneliness can lead to self-criticism, negative self-talk. So instead, practice self-compassion by acknowledging your feelings without judgment and treating yourself with the same kindness and understanding that you would offer a friend and a loved one. So let's go into the crucial tool in battling against loneliness, and that is mindfulness. Mindfulness involves being present in the moment, fully experiencing your thoughts and emotions without judgment. It can help you develop a deeper understanding of yourself and your emotions, which can, in turn, lead to more authentic connections with others. Oftentimes, this is a very hard thing to do, to sit with yourself and to have this internal dialogue and confronting all of these emotions that you're going through and trying to dig deeper to the roots of it. It's a long journey. It can get pretty dark and pretty sad. And, it's a work that is necessary in order to heal, to grow, and to strengthen. So practicing mindfulness can be as simple as taking a few minutes each day to sit quietly and focus on your breath. There are also many other mindfulness apps. Like if you haven't heard of the Calm app, check it out, because I think they do a great job of just giving you that resource for you to connect with, to give you a cue for you to reset, pause, and become more mindful in the present. Another powerful tool is gratitude. When you're feeling lonely, it's easy to focus on what you don't have. Try to cultivate gratitude by reflecting on the things that you're thankful for in life. And I know that when you're feeling down, that can be a hard thing to do, which is why it's very important to have this reflection of your emotions and work through them, and then reflect on the things you're thankful for in life. It could be as simple as the warmth of the sun on your face, or the sand between your toes, or the cool ocean breeze, or laughter of a loved one. Keeping a gratitude journal can be a helpful practice in this regard. Okay, or just a journal overall, so you can just share your thoughts and put them down. Now, aside from all this mindfulness talk and everything else, and gratitude and everything, it's also important to recognize that if you need help, seeking professional help when needed. Now, if loneliness is taking a toll on your mental health and your daily life, it's essential to reach out to a therapist or a counselor. And I cannot stress that enough. If you need help, get help. There's nothing wrong with asking for help. Because when you get a therapist or a counselor, they can provide you guidance, support, strategies, and give you resources to help you navigate and overcome these feelings. Remember, again, seeking help is a sign of strength, not weakness. It's actually taking a step towards improving your mental health and emotional well-being. That's a lot. Lots to take in today. So overall, the epidemic of loneliness is complex. And it's affecting millions of people around the world. And it's not just about statistics now. It's about personal experience and emotions. But there are strategies you can employ to combat loneliness. Now, just to recap some of the strategies. You got to acknowledge your loneliness and believe in the possibility of connection. Cultivate genuine quality relationships with others. Engage in social activities and acts of kindness. Use technology mindfully to foster connections. Prioritize sleep and self-compassion. Practice mindfulness and gratitude. And seek professional help when needed. Remember, you're not alone in feeling lonely. Together, we can break the cycle of isolation and forge meaningful connections that bring joy, fulfillment into our lives so that we can live with more purpose and intention. And like we always talk about, live cool, stand tall within yourself. Well, that's it for today's episode. Episode 100 of the Cool Project. 100 episodes. It's been a while. We have some things planned for the future of this podcast, and we're excited to get it out there to you. And make sure you're following the Cool Project over on Instagram, TikTok, all those areas. We'd be happy to connect with you more over there. Remember, you have the power to combat loneliness and create a more connected life. If you enjoyed this episode, please share it with someone you think could benefit from it. And don't forget to subscribe to the podcast. We greatly appreciate it. Until next time, stay connected, take care, and keep it cool.